hope you're enjoying the range of topics we've covered so far across the first 3 or 4 episodes of 360 Speedway. If you haven't watched all or some of the previous episodes, you're still welcome to pick these up on playback, either through our Spotify channel or indeed through our YouTube channel, or have a look at our Facebook page, 360 Speedway Facebook page, and you'll see various links to those previous episodes. As ever, even though the episodes are done and dusted, we'd still appreciate your feedback and your comments. And as I say, if there's any subjects that you out there would like us to cover that we haven't surfaced and offered to you, again, please make those known, and we will build them into future episodes. Just before we get on with the action, again, if I can ask you, please just keep across our social media output. We would really appreciate if you routinely liked and commented and contributed to as much output from 360 Speedway as possible. And again, you'll see the various social media accounts surrounding us on screen, cycling around the screen, and the one in particular that I'm keen for you to latch onto and for your convenience is our WhatsApp, our dedicated 360 Speedway WhatsApp. The number once again, 0333 772 40 46. Right, lads, before we pick up the next Fan Pulse Lap 3, I just wondered if I could ask you to reflect on the week that's just gone, Grand Prix included, and I wonder if there's any particular or individual rider or team performances that caught your eye that you would like to give a shout out to. Robbo.
Yeah, like I said, I mentioned Dan Thompson last week, and yeah, he went out and won the British semi-final qualifier with a 15-point maximum. I thought it was a fantastic achievement. Very good. Absolutely. Dan had a really good week. He scored solidly again for Ipswich. He scored solidly for Glasgow. Yes. Thank you, Dan. That's right.
And and I know he's looking forward to the British final, which is on, I think it's a week on Monday. And before then, in fact, it might be the day before, he's actually riding in Glasgow in the British Under-21 final. So a few big individual events coming up for young Dan. Big Mac, anyone caught your eye?
Well, I watched the Grand Prix on Saturday, Derek, and without doubt, I mean, obviously Bartosz won it, but I was really impressed with Brady Kurtz. I've watched Brady over the last couple of weeks, like I have with Tom Brennan, and Brady Kurtz is, after his performance on Saturday, never quite got there on the rostrum, but what a night he had, and I thought I think he's going to have a good season, the Grand Prix.
Yeah, more than capable at that level, and I think he enjoyed himself. And there'll be better suited Grand Prix tracks to come than Landshut. It was quite a narrow track. Brady obviously was banging in some big points and was top of the leaderboard for a while. But Carol Johnson, what about yourself? Yeah, I know you keep a keen eye across the speedway scene.
Yeah, I do look in obviously now and again and keep my eye in, and I think, for me, somebody that obviously we all know, a lot of people love, a lot of people hate, but I think Cookie, for me this week, I think, I've worked with Cookie, I've had dealings with him, good and bad. I know where he's at, personally, and it's nice to see him and his interview the other day. After 2 really good meetings for Oxford, and to see a smile back on his face, because he's such a likeable character. Yes, he's had his problems over the years. We all know that, but he's a rider that utmost respect for, with his ability on track, and when he's on it, he's unbelievable. And I think just to try and get him back to where he should be, I think. For me, Cookie is standout for me.
Carol, listen, if I done that magician's paper thing again, I would have written down Craig Cook. I was going to give Craig a call out. I seen him in action at Fort Berwick against Glasgow on Sunday, and he won a couple of heats, and he looked pretty superb at times. And Dan Thompson, who we've already mentioned, and Bomber got the better of him once or twice, but and then he went and banged in that 15-point maximum for Oxford at Birmingham the following day. So, and that was a match-winning performance for the Spires. So yeah, keep up the good work, Mr. Cook. Good to see you back in the points. I'm going to stick to recent form and give a call out to young Cooper Rushen. And I'm going to go Rushen, Rushen. I keep calling him Rushton for the last couple of weeks. So my apologies, Cooper, but I'm still across your social media. I enjoy watching the videos that you put out, and loved seeing you blast around Owlerton a few days ago. So you keep up the fantastic work and progress, and I look forward at some point to seeing you firsthand, hopefully at Glasgow. All right, let's move on then, as promised, and pick up Fans Pulse Lap 3. You see the graphic on screen. We've talked already about Speedway's greatest innovations, so we've done a 180, and but we're going to talk about worst innovations. So I'm not quite sure where to start. So we picked up probably some of the great innovations that we talked about would be some people's worst innovations. That's the nature of opinions. The lay down and upright debate, for example. A lot of people think that that the uprights rule to this day. But Carol, I'm going to pick on you first, if you don't mind. And any worst innovations or things that Speedway has introduced or trialled which that were quickly abandoned or should be, in your opinion?
Yeah, and I think hopefully the boys agree. I think they should bring back the rolling at the start. I think if somebody rolls into the tapes and pulls back, I don't think they should be excluded. I think it's, let's go back to old school. It never hurt in the past. It penalises the ones that do try and push the boundaries and the limits. And I think it would make things a lot better. For me, it'd certainly be a lot more interesting. And I don't think you'd get as many restarts as what we get now.
Robbo, I'm going to bring you in, Robbo. I'm interested in your view of this. So I know, and you will know, that some of the shenanigans at the tapes before a race, gardening it seems to be a modern thing that I can't honestly remember. Did gardening happen back in the day? It must have. But anyway, to Carol's point, the tightening up of the rules on the start grid and tapes infringements for a slight movement, etc., etc. In your view, Stuart, has that been a pure innovation for Speedway?
It certainly was for me on a number of occasions. I don't know. It would be interesting to try it. Actually, it'd be interesting to give it a go where you could move again to see what happened and what it was like. I would like to see that, because in my time of riding and remembering going to watch Speedway as a youngster, it's always been, you've got to sit still. I don't remember the rolling thing. It was probably a thing when I was quite young, but I think I just used to go around playing the dirt, when I was young, rather than watch the Speedway. But Big Mac, do you and Stuart are much the same age, if I'm not mistaken, so maybe your recollection is pretty close to Robbo's, but what's your views on the ability, as Carol suggests, to be able to charge the tapes or touch the tapes and roll back and forward?
Do you know what? I'd never actually thought of it, to be honest, but great shout, Carl. I think that it would be interesting for the sport. I think it would cut a lot of shenanigans out. Like you say, there's a lot of mind games at the start these days. I think it would be a good introduction to try it. You look at what happens now with the tapes, you get, stuck back 30, 50 yards, whatever it is, or you're excluded if it's a big meeting. But when you look back, when maybe 70s and obviously when they used to do it in the 80s, you never had tapes infringements, people restarting. It was, they roll the back and forward, and it's he who's the quickest at the rolling. So no, I would like to see that. That would be interesting.
It'd actually be interesting just to pilot it, right? Just to have it could be a challenge, built into a challenge or something, but just allow the riders to try it. But I suppose the flaw in that suggestion would be that all of Speedway would have to do the same thing, right? Because I think I get the sense that much the same rules apply in Poland and Sweden and Denmark and the UK, and any deviation from that is just asking for trouble potentially. Carol, any views on that argument?
Yeah, obviously, it'd have to be across the board. I think because obviously if you get the UK doing it, and then some of our boys go to Poland and they start rolling at the tapes and into the tapes. It's you'd have to. It would have to be across the board, but why do you have to sit still? Look at it now with transponders on. People are getting warnings for literally for moving. They're not touching the tapes. There's a little bit of movement. They might have still missed the start, but they're still getting a warning for it. So potentially they do it one more time and they're out of that race. So, they could, it's a loss of earnings, you get kicked out, because you've moved a little bit. We're not touching the tapes, we're not breaking the tapes, but they're moving, so they're getting penalised for that. And I think that's probably wrong. And there's an art to it. Obviously, there's an art to making a start from a standing start, as we know. Look at Hans Nielsen. One of the best at it. But there's still an art to a rolling start. You still got to make sure that you roll at the perfect time as the tapes go up to go. And we've seen it many times. We've seen riders penalised for making good starts when they shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
I've seen it, with riders that I've had at Peterborough. We've seen it. Leicesterspeedway used to be one of the best for it. His starting was unbelievable. And he had this stupid camera on his helmet one day, and he made a start and nothing touched it apart from this camera. And they excluded it for it because obviously it's hit the camera as he's gone up. He was that quick. But it's certainly something that I would personally be interested in seeing.
Yeah, it's a super interesting suggestion. 360 Speeds is if you're watching this and shouting at your device with an opinion either way, please share it with us. It'd be interesting to get some feedback and some views from you. Stuart, Big Mac, talking about ace gators. One of the best consistent gators that I've ever seen was a fellow teammate of yours, Ross Brady, was like lightning from the gates. I don't know how he did it. He could have been Ross Brady could have been a world champion over 3-lap races, I used to say when I watched them.
Ross was unbelievable, honestly unbelievable. I'll go one even better. I think David Walsh, when he was at Sheffield, they two guys were just phenomenal out of the starts. Absolutely. Ross would get out of the start and he'd literally glide maybe 4 or 5 inches off the ground all the way to the first bend, and his starts were like you say. And if to be fair, when he got in front and he had a bit of grip, there was no catching him. And David Walsh was the same. But you look over the years. Carl touched on it. My hero was Hans Nielsen. His starts were just, every time it was always the same. And he could just feather that clutch so well and get to that bend. But there was a lot of great starters in the game. But no, Ross, David Walsh, and Hans, they were the three that would definitely stick out.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I said it earlier on. Best innovations, worst innovations. Some people will think completely the opposite way from us, right? So we're calling out some things that might be able to be improved in Speedway, but there'll be people out there watching us thinking that's absolutely not. So other innovations over the years which have always niggled were lots of rules tinkering. Helmet colours. Remember we had green helmet colours, and we had yellow and black was the traditional one, of course. Polka dot helmet colours. All those little tinkering for the tinkering's sake, and they haven't lasted the course. One other thing which I mentioned gardening, which is a whole subject in its own right. But one other potential innovation that a lot of supporters still wrestle with is the introduction of the playoffs. Robbo, I don't know where you land in terms of the playoffs being good, bad or indifferent.
I quite like the playoffs. It makes the end of the season a lot more interesting. If your teams went out and won the league as such, the top of the league table, and then you go out and finish third in the playoffs, then you're probably not going to be very happy. But as far as a general fan now, as I am, it's great to watch. I like watching them, and it's every rider on the track knows it's all to play for in them meetings, and this is the last chance they're going to get to win the league of that season. I
must admit, I'm in favour of them. I think they add something right at the end of the season. CJ,
Yeah.
big man,
Yeah.
what's your thoughts?
Oh, well, obviously I've been involved in as a team manager and as a promoter, and I'm 50-50 because 2018 we finished top of the league. We finished top of the league, and we raced against Lakeside in the playoffs, and it was, we lost riders through injury as soon as we got into the playoffs, and it really killed our season. It was, we didn't get. I didn't feel we got what we deserved for the season that we'd had as a team. And basically we got to the playoffs and that was it. Our season was done. There was nothing we could do. There was no way that we could bring anybody in to cover the riders that we'd lost. And unfortunately, it went against us. So it's, for me, it's a bit of a 50-50. Yes, I can see why it's a good thing. But on the flip side of that, I've been in the position that it really cost us, and it cost us big time. But yeah, that Speedway, unfortunately, I do feel that for a team that tops the league, that tops the table, there should be something for them.
Yep.
And then the playoffs should be for something else. Not necessarily, the league champions, because you've gone the whole season to be league champions, and then you can lose it on, a playoff meeting, which is really it's hard to take. So from obviously the team management side, that was difficult, really difficult, but. Yeah, it's, we accept it, and we don't like it sometimes, but we accept it.
Stuart McDonald, you were involved in your time in various cup finals and big occasions. Not the playoff, that wasn't a thing in your time, but how much would you like to have taken part in a Premiership playoff final, Stuart?
Well, I'm a bit like Carl, I'm a bit 50-50, because I think that for the team that's finished top, to go on to the playoffs and then not get to the final or not win it, I think it's a bit unfair. But then you've got teams that are not languishing, but teams that are mid-table that have given them something to go for, so it makes it a bit more exciting, I think. Because some teams, when they're sitting maybe 6th, 7th, they think, you know what, I'm not going to get there. They might, relax a little bit, but I think it makes it a little bit exciting. But I can also see if I was a team manager or even a captain of a team that had won the league, then for some reason, injuries, bad luck, whatever, wet tracks, whatever, and we didn't get to the final, my toys would be right out of the pram. I'm telling you, it would be like, wow. So, it's got its positives and negatives, but it gives more teams opportunities. And unfortunately does penalise probably the team that wins the league, if you like, and if they don't get there. So, but all they need to do is just get there, win the league, and then get there and win it as well.
Oh, I mean, you make it sound so easy, Stuart, so straightforward.
Absolutely.
So there you are at home, whether you like them, loathe them, or the jury's still out on some of the Speedway's worst innovations. Hopefully you've enjoyed the chat in Fan Pulse. Lap 3.